right, so welcome parents, and I am Mrs. Smith, and we have Mr. Bushy here as well. I'll introduce myself, and then he can tell you a little bit about himself as well. And then we're just going to kind of take turns. I'm going to talk a little bit about Canvas and some other topics, and then Mr. Bushy is going to talk about Edmentum, where your students are taking their classes. And then we also are fine with using the chat feature. So if you have a question as we're speaking, you're welcome to type that into the chat window. You can send it just to us, or you can send it to the whole group. It doesn't matter to me. And then we will try to answer those towards the end. So like I said, Jaylene Smith, I typically teach geometry at the high school, but decided to take this on this year. I'm a Westfield High School graduate. I've been teaching for 16 years. This is my 17th year. Graduated from Butler University. I live in Westfield, have a couple of kids in the school system. I have a daughter and then 2 sons. The youngest one is not school age yet. So that's a little bit about myself. I wanted to first talk about kind of what my role and what Mr. Bushy's role is in this program. So we're not teachers in the sense that you normally think of teachers. So we are not actually giving content to the students. All of the content of the course is on Edmentum. So they'll watch videos there. We call them tutorials. So that's where they kind of do their learning. And then there's also places where they do homework and quizzes and tests and things like that. So we are not teachers in the normal sense of that word. You can think of us more as facilitators. So our jobs are kind of to monitor each student's progress and to reach out to them when they are not maybe keeping up with their pacing. We are also we'll be grading some assignments. Some assignments are automatically graded, but then there are a few that we are required to grade. We can help with troubleshooting, and we can also help students when they're running into problems with their courses. So for example, yesterday I had a few students who were having some trouble in their ICP class. So I went into the tutorial, tried to learn a few things, and then help them out. So a lot of times we can do that. There will be some subjects where maybe we just don't know enough to be helpful. For example, French would be one subject where I will not be helpful because I don't know anything about French. But typically we can offer enough help to kind of get the students going. For those situations where we maybe can't offer as much help as we would like, we are coming up with a resource list where students can find online help. So you can expect that later this week. And then also there might be some other teachers stepping in certain situations if we deem that necessary. And then I think Mr. Bushy and I are also available for just kind of accountability check-ins if a student needs that. That's something that we could kind of schedule on a regular basis. So I am going to share my screen and kind of show you guys where we would want the students to start each day, where they would take their attendance and things like that. So this might take me just a second. Let's see here. Okay, so this is my Canvas page, and it's going to be a little bit different than Mr. Bushy's Canvas page because we're different people and we designed our pages a little bit differently. But the same content is there, just maybe organized a little bit differently. So when you get to my Canvas page, here's a few important things right at the top. First, your student needs to be submitting attendance every day, and that's a really easy process. So they'll go to this first link here. It says, click here to submit attendance every day. So you'll click on that. It takes them to a list of days of attendance and you can click on today, and then it says take the quiz, and they just mark I'm present, okay? And then they would submit that, and they are then counted present for the day. And I think Mr. Bushy has the same type of thing.
Very similar, very similar. I try to put it at the very top of my Canvas homepage and try to treat it kind of like homeroom is where they would go just at the very start of their day.
Yeah. So another thing about Canvas that is a little bit different than usual, normally when students go to Canvas, they would see all of their classes. They might still see that, but there's only one Canvas class that matters, and that is the one that says Ed T.O.R. Smith or Ed T.O.R. Bushy. The other classes, like if they're taking biology and they have a biology course on Canvas, there's never going to be anything in there, okay? All of their biology materials are on Edmentum. So when they go to Canvas, they're only paying attention to one class on Canvas, and that is this Ed T.O.R. Smith or Ed T.O.R. Bushy.
The only one thing about that, the only exception to that is I know we have a couple students who have like Ivy Tech type stuff, and I don't know that they would have anything on Canvas, but I know I have a few students who have some outside of school credits that they might be some of that information on Canvas, but that would be the only kind of exception.
You're right. That's a really good point. So I know there's a couple of kids taking like an AP class that's not through Edmentum. They're taking that through the high school. So that class would be on Canvas as well. But as far as Edmentum courses go, you only need to pay attention to TOR class.
Right.
And then I just wanted to point you to a couple other things that would be on both mine and Mr. Bushy's Canvas page. One of those for me, and I know this is going to look different from Mr. Bushy, but I have like a daily to-do list where they can click on that. So today, it just kind of gives them a couple of reminders, like it told them about the Meet the Teacher night tonight, just reminds them to take their attendance, tells them to get on Edmentum and start working. So that's another thing you can find. And then I know that I've been getting some questions about technology help. So like things maybe aren't going well with the technology within Edmentum. So I wanted to point you to another resource. If you scroll down here a little bit, it says helpful information from school. This is the first letter that you ever got about virtual learning. Tons of helpful information here. So I'm gonna scroll down. I gotta get this out of my way here for a second. I'm gonna scroll down and just show you towards the bottom. There's the WWS Tech Helpline for technology help, and then there's also an Edmentum support line. So you can email or call with technology problems within Edmentum. I'm going
to put that piece, I'm going to put on my homepage, as I think I don't have it necessarily anywhere right up front right now, but I'm going to put it on my homepage for those.
That's a good idea, and I can do that same thing. I do know that they are open 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday. But they'll call you back if you leave a message or send an email. Another thing I wanted to point out that is on both mine and Mr. Bushy's homepage is the FAQ. So there is lots of good information here on the FAQ. And it's linked really nicely for you as well. So if you want to know about attendance, you would click here on attendance and it'll take you to that, any questions you might have about attendance. What is a tutorial? What is the mastery test? What if I'm having a tech problem? So all of those things are here on that FAQ. So that's a really helpful resource. And then just one other thing, when a student needs to communicate with either me or Mr. Bushy, there's a spot to do that in Edmentum, and we are going to ask you not to do that because we don't get any sort of alert if a student sends us a message in Canvas, or I'm sorry, in Edmentum. Mr. Bushy, did you see we have a few more people to join?
Oh, yeah, I'll catch that. I saw the chat. I will add them.
All right, I was just going to try to do it, and then I got confused. So
gotcha.
Anyway, communicate with the teachers through Canvas. That is the best place to do it. We will get those messages quickly. We can respond quickly. So Canvas is where you want to communicate with the teacher, or just sending an email using our email address. We're just asking students not to send us messages in Edmentum because we don't see those as quickly as we see the others. I believe that I have said everything that I was kind of in charge of saying. So
Gotcha.
I think I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Mr. Bushy is going to attempt to share his screen. He's going to walk you through some things on Edmentum. So I'm going to stop share.
Okay. All right. So my name is Doug Bushy. I've been teaching at Westfield for, this is my 8th year here, my 15th year in education teaching math. Obviously, this year is a little bit different for everyone. As Mrs. Smith went over and talked about, our rules, really we're here to help you guys out in any way that we can. We want to put you in contact with people that can help you if we can't. And so we certainly, want to do everything we can to help you guys out. And if we cannot, we, like Mrs. Smith mentioned, we're trying to put together kind of a resource list of places they can either look online, and then also we're working on more helpful tools as far as specific questions go that maybe you couldn't find online. Okay, and then let's see. So as far as this goes, I'm going to share my screen here in a minute. We kind of have some main things here before I get to the Edmentum part of it. We want to monitor your students' progress and kind of reach out anytime they're falling behind. We know that this is different. We know, in a couple of different ways that this is challenging for them. And so the main thing that we want to do is, like I said, help them along. And the tech issues we know about, we're trying to do everything we can. We have a meeting with Edmentum coming up with an Edmentum rep on Thursday, and certainly have some questions that we want to get more help with ourselves. All right, so about Edmentum, let me share screen. And here we go. All right, so on Edmentum, this is the login screen. Now, if you are going to log in as a student, you could get to this link from Canvas on our homepage, which hopefully everyone has done it. We found that by now. And then you can log in with Google. This is by far the fastest route to go. I'm not going to log in that way right now because I want to go into into a practice students Edmentum page. So I'm going to do this real quick. Okay, and then, all right, so this is the screen that students would see when they log in. The Edmentum people came up with the sample student here. I didn't name him, so I'll blame that on the Edmentum people. All right, so this is where kids are going to do their coursework. They will not turn in anything on Canvas. The only thing on Canvas is the attendance that Mrs. Smith was talking about earlier. So it's just, we're using Canvas kind of like a homeroom, and then all their work is going to be here in Edmentum, where unless they have joined here in the last couple of days, they've been doing some work in here for almost a week for some of them. All right, so before I go any further, I want to make sure, and I've reached out, I know Mrs. Smith has reached out in our messages to make sure that your Edmentum class schedule matches your Power School schedule. We don't want, obviously, to miss anything here at the start. I've tried to check multiple times. Several kids have reached out and said, let me know that something is wrong, or this is incorrect, or they have an extra class that should be dropped. So I always check it with Power School before I do anything in Edmentum, because I have to make sure that they match up. Okay? All right, so as far as the courses go, so they'll see their active assignments for their classes. This particular student only has 3 classes. And then the tutorials, so if we go to all activities for this particular student, I'll talk about pacing here in a minute, but you're going to see here they have different things maybe that haven't mastered yet. They've got stuff coming up, but this can give you an idea of what is on the horizon right now. Okay, and this one, and this is also kind of a made up class, so it doesn't necessarily show everything that your student might see. But the main thing we have on these is we have tutorials. So here you got your chronological thinking tutorial. For this would be a social studies class. Here's an algebra course activity that's a little bit different. But so for tutorials, that is the class. It is really important for everybody to understand. That's where you do your work. That is where you take notes. I know there's some guided practice in there, and where they have to maybe type out a paragraph of what is maybe an essay type question. It really depends on the class as to what they're required to do in the tutorial. Now, I don't want them to misunderstand this, but the tutorial is really to help their learning. So it's really more of a completion grade as far as getting everything they can done and helping their understanding. And they really have to take some, be disciplined and to really try with the tutorial. I highly, highly recommend that they take notes on the tutorial, because if you don't, and then you get to what is next after the tutorial is the mastery test. Okay, the mastery test is like graded homework. It's not a unit test. It's going over questions that were in the tutorial or that should have been somewhere in there. And so taking good notes is your best bet to do well on what I call graded homework is the mastery tests. So
That's
mastery tests
kind
are
of,
not necessarily 100-point tests. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's kind of one of the benefits of this platform, doing virtual learning, is that you on your mastery tests, on your post test, it is acceptable to use your notes. So it's important that they take good notes so that they can use those notes. So when they're in the tutorial, they want to be taking notes thoroughly. I think Mr. Bushy will talk about this as well, but like a tutorial isn't something you do quickly. In fact,
Yeah.
some of them will take you multiple days. So you're getting in there, you're listening, you're writing notes, you can go back, and then you can use those notes to do your other activities. I just wanted to
Absolutely.
interject that. Sorry, Mr.
Yeah,
Bushy.
no, you're fine. No, what I was going to say along with that is that to go with the mastery test, the tutorial and mastery test kind of go together. That's your classwork and then your graded homework. The mastery test you get 3 attempts at. Now, after they take the first attempt, if you do not get 80% or higher, then it will say that it is locked and you can't retake it, at least after the first attempt. But the way to retake it is you must go back and go through the tutorial again. And so I've had several phone conversations, and email messages about that, saying the mastery test is locked. I understand that, but we just want to make sure we communicate to you guys. You can't unlock another mastery test or a retake until you go back through the material, which makes sense. You need to relearn the material a little bit better, and in order to do better on the same mastery test. And really, there's no downside to even taking notes on the mastery test the first time around, because if you don't do as well as you would have liked, you can always go back and look for things. Question 1, if it is, social studies was about, history during the Cold War or something. And, maybe I need to go look at the Cold War and look that up. So you can take notes even on that or just jot things down. So it really is an independent thing. And we want the students to take ownership of that. And I know that's hard. It's maybe a little different. We want to help them out in any way, but also it really falls on their shoulders to be, like I said, be independent and take ownership of this. Okay. All right. So tutorial, Ms. Smith, is there anything I left out about tutorials and mastery tests? There's one thing I know, just that I thought about. Someone had a good question on an email about which score on the mastery test is the one that is kept. Like say, on the first attempt, you get 60%. The second attempt, you get 80%. Well, you get the most recent attempt. So if you try it 3 times, like you're going for 100%, and let's say you get, 40% the first time, 80% the second time, but then the third time, maybe you forgot an answer and you get 60%, it will take the most recent attempt. And I hope that makes sense. And that's just how the Edmonton program is set up. I just want to make sure you were aware of that, or that everybody was aware of that. Okay. And then, so obviously following tutorials and mastery tests, we get to what the Edmonton program calls post tests. Post tests are basically your chapter tests. That is, the end of the unit. It's a unit test. It is going to be over everything. And again, if you've taken good notes, this is part of the course. That is something that to reward, and it's just something with this program that you are allowed to do. So if you have, obviously, if you've taken good notes, hopefully you don't have to refer to them for everything within that, but hopefully that will take the note taking, and the your work in the tutorial is obviously going to show up once you get to the post-test time, which is the unit test. And then the last thing, then we have finals, just to make sure, so the end of semester test. I know we're on trimesters. This is paced out for a trimester, and it covers, typically in all classes, very similar to what we would try to do in our high school class. So those tests, the end of semester test, same as it's basically the final exam test. It's just covering the whole trimester there. Okay. All right. Let's see. So next I want to talk about pacing. Obviously this right here is something slightly different than you're used to, as students are used to having one assignment per day, and then a review and a test in a lot of classes. Whereas this particular program in Edmentum, you're really given the entire trimester, and here it is presented to you, and then you just work your way along. So our recommendation is that, obviously in this particular class, when it's green, this student is ahead of pace. Then you go to this student, they're in orange, they're slightly behind. And then this particular course, they haven't even started yet. So when you get this, the red color running backwards, that means obviously you've fallen behind. We're gonna have to focus a little bit more on that. Now, when I've talked to parents this week and students, in the past week, my recommendation is not to try to, I feel like if you only pay attention to that, it can get a little overwhelming. My recommendation, just like our class period length is 60 to 70 minutes, is to try to take 60 to 70 minutes on each class per day. Okay, so if you have 4 classes, you're going to take 60 to 70 minutes times 4. You can take a lunch break, you can take a break to walk outside. You just can't take a 3.5 hour Nintendo Switch or PS4 break in the middle of your day and still get everything done. So anyhow, you just don't want to get off track. I think developing a routine is a big part of this. And again, I'll say it again, 60 to 70 minutes per class per day, and students should be where they want to be with their 4 to 5 classes. I know we have a handful of students who maybe have 3 classes, and that's okay too, but that should be your general guidelines. And that's certainly a big message I want to get out in this new format for Back to Teacher Night for this year. Okay, anything else on that, Ms. Smith, that I
was gonna see if you could go into one of those classes
Yeah.
and show them like the dates and kind of what the dates mean.
Okay. Let's go to all activities. All right, so these are the dates in which they were completed. These other dates, other things are estimations, and this particular student, it has things spaced out a little bit differently maybe than what your students might see if they logged into Edmentum tonight or right now. But these are more guidelines for when to get things done. I know I've talked to a handful of students about the different dates, and like, well, I logged in and there's nothing for me to do today. I'm like, well, there's always something for you to do until you get to the end of the course. Like, you could always keep going and going on to the next one. And to some extent, I've seen some people are like trying to work ahead, and that's okay. I just would say, don't overwhelm yourself with that. But at the same time, you want to stay on pace, obviously. Up at the top here, like, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to point out like the lag in dates here. So for example, when you see Monday, August 17th, and then the next thing isn't till Friday, August 21st, that basically means on that first activity, you have 4 days to work on that. And then by Friday, August 21st, you would be starting that next activity. And then, you have this course is a little weird.
Yes, it
but
is.
but typically the dates will be closer than that. But what it's telling you is if there's a difference in 3 dates between 2 activities, that means you have 3 days to do it.
Right. And so to go along with that, I think, whoops, I went into the tutorial.
And then Doug, sorry, could you also show them, where was that last screen you were just on?
This one. So all activities are where you can see the dates.
And then there was that thing on the left, that blue, where did that go? It was here just a second ago.
Oh, yes, yes. I know what you're talking about. Okay. Yeah, I know. I'll come right back to that. But what I wanted to say about the dates was that if you get ahead, that's perfectly fine. It's once you get behind that you want to make sure, and like I said, that's why the 60 to 70 minutes per day is, you know, our aiming point for students on that. All right, so if I go to this one, Mrs. Smith, this up here is important. So on this, you can do a lot of different things. And I know I did a video about the tutorials, like this is the start of a tutorial for this particular course. You can do different things with this bar up here. Up top, there is a save and exit, which you have to be careful with. That was what my video was about. A lot of people were getting logged out of things because they clicked save and exit and they thought they were saving their work, and it was actually, you know, their work should have been typed in somewhere down in the bottom. So over here on the left, you have a table of contents for the entire tutorial. You have notes that you can take in here that should be saved once you save and exit. So you can take them here. You can write them down.
I believe
go ahead.
I believe in some classes there might be like guided notes. So it might give you some pointers of things you should be paying attention to. I don't know if that's
and it might be on certain slides.
Right.
As you were to go through this. Yeah. So then they have resources. You know, there's a glossary right here and some different things to help them. There is look up a word, like the reading, there's a dictionary. There is some reading tools and narration. There is a translator. So you can click through, there's different languages here that you can click through and, you know, words to translate if there's ones they can't figure out. I think that is obviously a huge helper for some of our students. And then a highlighter. So if they want to highlight things as they go. So those are all tools that hopefully they have noticed, but maybe they've just avoided that along with their work through this. Okay, anything else on that page, Mrs. Smith, maybe that I got going too fast? Okay.
I think the only last things we were going to touch up on before like our question session was just like a few things that are coming your way. So one of those is the parent portal. Hopefully by the end of the week, we have a parent portal available. Also in our meeting with the Edmentum representative on Thursday, we actually just realized that the students can't see their own grade. We can see it. We thought they could also see it, but they can't. So we are going to see if we can change that. So Thursday, we're going to try to get the answer to that. And then one other thing that you will be getting information on is I know a few people have not had some of the materials maybe that they need for a science lab. So we are working on, you know, things like a kitchen scale. It has suggested if you don't have a kitchen scale, being able to check that out from the high school. So that is, you can expect that information later this week. I think that pretty much wraps up what we wanted to go through, right, Doug?
Yeah, I see that. I see there's some questions in there.
Yep, there was a lot of questions. I was just going to start off with one of them, and you can kind of scroll through there too, Doug. But something I keep seeing on here is kids typing a bunch of stuff, and then when they go to submit, it disappears, and it's gone. So we will also talk to the Edmentum lady about that on Thursday. My suggestion right now, I saw someone suggest like a screenshot. My suggestion would be perhaps pulling up like a Google Doc or a Word document and typing your answer there instead, and then copying and pasting it into the window. That way, if it doesn't work for some reason, you have it on a Word document or you have it on a Google Doc where your work is not completely lost.
Uh,
Here.
I got it. I
Okay.
think I thought I hit mute.
Um, so that's one option. And I know that is not a final solution, but right now, until we figure out kind of why that's happening, that would be one option. You know, okay, I'm about to write a bunch of answers here. Maybe I'll type that into a Word document, and then when I'm finished, I'll try to copy and paste it into the Edmentum program. And then if it doesn't work, you still have your work on that Word document.
Yeah, I've also had one student who was having trouble with that, and they just took a picture on their phone before they hit submit. Like I said, we have a meeting coming up with the Edmentum rep. That is certainly something I want to ask about, because I don't want students to have to do all that every time. But I also want to say that typically when that has been happening is in the tutorial. And like Ms. Smith said, hit the submit button and then it saves it. Part of the reason they made it so tough to do all this is for security, so that students can't cheat. And that's part of why within the program there's some of that stuff. And I know it can be frustrating at times, but I understand the necessity of trying to keep people from cheating and just copying and pasting answers. Do you want me to take one of these, Ms. Smith?
Sure. This was a private question, but I think it's fine to answer for everybody. It's nothing personal. So, like percentage of students who are virtual. I think at the high school we have about 300, a little less than 300 students who are in the virtual program.
Yes.
And those are not all covered just by me and Mr. Bushy. So there's some different situations there. So I think that's where we're at numbers wise. If you see another question, Doug.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as I said, that I know the tech problems can be super frustrating. You know, obviously being on a virtual learning platform, you know, we're going to run into some hiccups here and there. I would say anything you can do to kind of save your work, like I said with the picture, that's a good idea that a student had. As far as the mastery test go, I just want to reiterate, I noticed a couple questions on here, and I've talked to people about it. If you're getting kicked out of the mastery class, I'm not sure if it's because of, you know, for me, if I leave my computer to go help my 1-year-old son with whatever it is or whatever it might be, then sometimes it will log me out of it Edmentum. So I would say if you're going to start a mastery test, you need to start the mastery test and do all of it. You don't want to leave it for a while, because it will kick you off, I think, at a certain time. And I think part of that is, again, because they're trying to curb student plagiarism, cheating, whatever you want to call it, and just kind of copying answers kind of thing. So I think that's part of it. I'm going to clarify that. That's another question I have for Thursday with our meeting. So hopefully that helps understand a little bit on the mastery test. And like I said, just a quick answer is, I saw a couple people said it, try to take the mastery test in one setting straight through. I think that might help. I don't. So.
Okay. And then I had some questions. We may have already answered this, but I see some questions about taking notes. So when we said you can take notes throughout the tutorial, it's kind of up to you how you do that. I guess I'm imagining having a notebook where you're kind of writing some things down. Then, you know, Mr. Bushy showed us where you could actually take the notes online if you wanted. So that's probably personal preference. There is something to be said about writing things down and it sticking in the memory a little bit better. The tutorial is the equivalent of being in class. It is like your teacher teaching you and you are taking notes.
And to go along with that, I think you mentioned some tutorials might take more than one day. You know, you might work on a tutorial for more than one day leading up to, you know, a mastery test, you know, 2 or 3 days later. So
I see some questions about glitches in the mastery test, like not letting you retake it. Remember what we said about having to go back through the tutorial for the second chance to unlock. If you're still having issues, go to that FAQ, and there's some different scenarios that it gives you there. Like if you have a pop-up blocker on, sometimes that can affect the mastery test. So definitely check out the FAQ, and that'll give you some information if you're struggling with opening your second chance to the mastery test. And then if you've tried all of that stuff and it's still not working, then you could contact us and we could see if there's another issue.
Yeah. One question I see here, I want to make sure I addressed, if a teacher doesn't grade the work, does it show that they're behind in the course? I just want to say we are aware on the grading, and that is certainly something we are kind of itching to get going with ourselves. We've been getting everybody started and into the program. So if you have an assignment that says in process or processing or in progress, I think processing is what it usually says, that means that we will get it graded. We certainly will get onto that as soon as possible. I appreciate your patience and grace in that, as it certainly is, I guess the main thing, we want to make sure we're grading it correctly, and we want to make sure that you guys get credit for the work you've put into it. Okay. And so, that will be done as soon as possible is the best I can say right now. Ms. Smith, I don't know. Is there anything there that I'm stating incorrectly?
No, I don't think so. That sounded
okay.
good.
Okay.
I saw someone asking about finals week. You just have to be done with the class by that last, that due date or whatever, which I forget. Is that November 12th? Is that right? Please don't quote me on that, because I don't know it off the top of my head, but each class has an end date. So yeah. Your finals would just have to be done by that date. Whether you decide to dedicate a full week to your finals or not, it just kind of depends on the students.
And it's paced out. The pacing is so that it is at the end of our trimester. So I know sometimes in Edmentum they throw around the word semester, but you can just replace that. We can edit it such that it is paced from August 17th, which was really your start date last Monday, until November 12th or 13th, whatever the last day of finals is in our trimester 1.
I see a question about the ideal number of classes. I think that totally depends on the student. Typically at school, they would be taking 5 classes. So I think that's kind of like the norm. But it's going to vary for, different types of kids. So somebody does mention that they think they might have 6 classes, which shouldn't happen. I think they're capped at 5 unless someone is trying to catch up for graduation or something like that. Yeah. But so if you do have 6 classes, you might talk to your counselor about that, or reach out to us so we can check and make sure Power School matches Edmentum.
I will say I noticed on here about the highest score versus the most recent on that is another question I have for our meeting this week, because we have discussed it ourselves. That probably if it's up to us, we're checking on that, I guess is the best I can say. I'm going to check on that because
that's a possibility,
that's the way it is right now.
If that's a possibility, it's a change that we would want to make.
Yeah. I forgot this earlier, but I see a question about grades. So as Ms. Smith mentioned, that the parent portal is hopefully coming soon, hopefully by the end of this week. We heard today that they're working on it and hopefully get that out as soon as possible. It will make us very happy once it's out to you, that you can check on that on your own. You could check it each day. Again, that's the parent portal for Edmentum. That would not be linked to anything else, just for Edmentum, because I know you're wanting to see progress. But for right now, really the best way to see your progress is just to ask your son or daughter, can I look at where you're at on, with your pacing within Edmentum? I know that's an unusual question to ask at the dinner table or wherever. But that's what you want to do for right now to check. And then hopefully it'll be very soon that we have the parent portal where you can just check whenever you want. So you will not see anything on Power School right now either. Everything is in Edmentum. Now, eventually that stuff will transfer to Power School, but you're going to want to check their progress on Edmentum.
And then I see a question here. I think maybe this is our last question. If anybody else has a question, go ahead and type it in now. But a question about setting up a regular reoccurring meeting with the TOR. that is something that is a possibility. We would just probably ask that you reach out through email if that's something that you're looking for. Um, it isn't a requirement by any means. To be honest, it it's
It's hard.
probably more for like for a kid who has trouble keeping on pace or generally needs more supports. That would be something that we would consider doing on a more regular basis. So you can just reach out to whoever your TOR is, either me or Doug,
Hmm.
and let us know if that's something your student needs.
Yeah, and to go along with that, anytime there's a certain issue or a question, and this is really especially for the students, the more specific you can be about what tutorial it was in, obviously what class it was in, but what tutorial it was in, where is it exactly that was giving you trouble? Because if you give us the location, we can get right there. That's one thing that's really good about Edmentum is I can pull it up, in 15 seconds. I can be right to the exact spot where you're at, and kind of help you out, or even I know I can either send you a Canvas message or I can try to make a phone call. So if it's specific stuff, please let us know what it is so that we can get it to communicate with you as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I've had a lot of students reach out like, oh, my mastery test timed out, and I'm like, okay, which class, which
Yeah.
mastery test,
Yes.
that kind of stuff. So the more specific you can be, the faster you can get an answer.
Sometimes extra information is bad, but this is the case. The more information we have, the better in order to help you guys out.
Yep.
For sure.
Okay, so I think I'm not seeing any more questions, but you're totally welcome to email us with any questions you think of later. Um, I see a question coming in, so I'll get to that in just a second. But we did record this, and so we'll try to post this later for people who couldn't attend, which I guess is none of you. But if you joined late, you could catch up with whatever you missed. So you can be looking for that later. I did see one more question. Oh, do they take the same courses next trimester? That would depend. We don't know what next trimester holds quite yet. Like, I guess there's lots of different possibilities. Everyone could be virtual. We could still be hybrid with some kids virtual. If there's a miracle, maybe we can all be back in school.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it kind of, it depends because
Yeah.
If you're new to Westfield or if you have a freshman, the way that trimesters work,
Yeah.
let's say you're taking geometry, that's 2 trimesters. Sometimes that's first trimester and third trimester. Sometimes it's first trimester and second.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's second and third. So
right. It just probably just depends on the logistics of what matches up and what we have
right.
to offer in Edmentum.
Right. Correct.
So that certainly that's a good question for us to go over with the counselors after we get kind of everything that goes with this program, off the ground. But yeah, we will certainly check on that, and we would be the people to us and the counselors would be who you can ask about something like that as we get going. Okay.
All righty.
All right. Like Ms. Smith said, reach out via email and Canvas message at any time to let us know things we can help.
All right. Thanks everyone for coming. Appreciate it. Hope it was helpful. And we'll just look forward to hearing from you.
There was real quick. I can answer this one question real quick. Sorry, Ms. Smith. I know you're.
Oh, you're fine.
I'll cut you off there. What is the difference between virtual and in-class grades? Does it affect my grade? I just would say, if you're in Edmentum, that is your grade. There's no other in-class. Like this is full credit. Like there's no partial credit and everything as far as, if you're taking Algebra 1, Part 1, this counts as your credit, and that's what you get. I hope that makes sense. All right.
I think maybe this could have been confusing, but I know Mr. Bushy and I both had some tasks for the students to do on their first couple days before we started Edmentum. So there was like some surveys, and they were supposed to create a schedule for themselves. that stuff isn't graded either. So like that, I don't know if you were thinking, how does that affect my grade? But it doesn't. So maybe that answers that question. I
Yeah,
see
and
it.
it would be the high school transcript. Somebody that's a good question. All of these will count towards high school credit, just to make sure that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
And if you have more specific
yeah,
questions kind of regarding
reach out.
that, I would defer you to the counselors for those
Yes, that's a good point. Good point as well.
transcript type questions. So, all righty.
All right. Thank you guys for a very unique back to school parent night. It's definitely a one of a
Nice to
kind for
meet
me.
everyone.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.